Hey there, my name's Ethan, and welcome to my channel. I'm going to be telling you stories while you enjoy this peaceful walk through Japan. That's where I live, but I'm from America. Anyways, I've lived a pretty weird life and I've collected a lot of stories, and a lot of them don't feel real, so today's story is about my mom. From first meeting, you would not think that these were true about her. She is not who she seems. Don't judge a book by its cover. This is one of those. And to be honest, growing up, I always thought I knew pretty much everything about my parents. Because my dad was the kind of guy who loved telling stories. Every car ride, every dinner, every family gathering, he'd find a way to tell another story about when he was younger. And the most annoying part was that he'd never realized that he was telling the same one for the millionth time. Like, I'd get halfway through a story, and then I'd be like, Dad, you've told this one like a million times. And he'd be like, no, I haven't. Tell me what happened then. And then I'd tell him exactly what happened. He'd just stop and go, oh, let me tell a different one. And then my mom was the complete opposite. She almost never talked about herself. She was always asking us about our day and what was going on in our lives and what we were doing, but she almost never talked about her own childhood. She honestly was one of the most selfless people I've ever met. I mean, she's my mom, so what do you expect? Like, honestly, I assumed there just wasn't much to tell. I felt like my mom was, not boring, but I don't know, man. I was just young. Anyways, every single night after work and school, my dad would always make sure that we ate dinner together, and my mom would cook food, and usually it'd be something like spaghetti or lasagna, and then Friday we'd have sushi nights, because she's Japanese. And my dad would usually use this time to rant about his day and maybe ask us about ours, but we were usually too tired and silent to give him a real answer. But one night at dinner, my dad started telling another story, and I interrupted him and said, Wait. Before you tell this, Mom, what about you? What was your childhood like? Almost like I just became self-aware because I was like 15 at the time, That's usually when that happens, right? Anyways, she laughed and was like, oh, I don't know. I've never really thought about it. Looking back now, I think she just never felt like telling her own stories or thought they were worth telling. But then she started talking. And within a few minutes, everyone at the table, my dad, me, and my sister, we stopped eating in shock because the things that she told us were actually crazy. I mean, it just started out normal. Like, she started talking about my oji-chan and oba-chan, which is my Japanese grandparents because I'm half Japanese, and she's from Japan. And from everything she told us, they sounded like normal parents. And my oji-chan was actually a police officer. Not just any kind of police officer, though. He was a narcos cop. Basically, his job was going after drug traffickers and organized crime, and apparently he was so respected, he actually received an award from the emperor. I actually remember seeing it hanging on the wall in their house every time I visited, and I always thought that was the coolest thing ever. Kind of like getting an honorary katana as a ninja or samurai or something. But my oji-chan and oba-chan passed away maybe like 5 years ago, unfortunately. So my uncle has it now, and hopefully it'll be passed down to me, So my mom casually told us about her parents, and then she casually mentioned her uncle. She said he was affiliated with the Yakuza. And if you don't know what the Yakuza is, it's basically Japan's version of the mafia. Naturally, I asked, wait, what do you mean affiliated? And she goes, oh, he wasn't just affiliated. He was one of the leaders. And at this point, me, my sister, and my dad all just looked at each other like, hold on. Like, I said, you've never told us this. Like, how can you just be dropping this on us right now? So apparently he owned an entire city block and spent most of his times hanging out in his bar with his boys that worked under him. Like, I mean, I don't know if I just said boy, like, these were basically kids. I'm sure he was like in his 40s, but the other gang members were like 18 or early 20s. My mom said a lot of them were missing fingers. And I said, wait, what do you mean? What happened to their fingers? That's kind of weird, They kind of need those to go pew-pew, Then she explained that whenever someone messed up badly enough, they were punished by cutting off one of their own fingers. And at this point, I wasn't even listening like someone was telling me a story. I was just wrapping my head around the fact that this was my family. Like, what? Then I looked over at my dad, and he was as shocked as I was. And I asked him, how did you never know this? Like, you've been married for over 20 years. How did you not know this about Mom? He just shrugged. Like, he genuinely had no idea. And that guy's, like, really surprised me. Almost as much as the story itself. I mean, the audacity, right? So, My mom kept going. She told us about her uncle and how his wife actually couldn't have children. Meanwhile, my grandparents had my mom and my uncle. One weekend, my mom and her brother went over to visit their uncle's house. And at the end of the weekend, her brother came home, but my mom, she didn't. Her uncle wanted her to become their daughter, apparently. He basically refused to give her back in some gang lord way, like, she's mine now, you know? And for about 3 months, my mom stayed with them while my grandpa, the narcos cop, and his own brother, who was a Yakuza boss, argued back and forth about who she belonged with. This was like some shit straight out of Breaking Bad, okay? Seriously. Even now, this sounds completely asinine, and I mean, after hearing all this, I really wanted to meet the other side of my family. But unfortunately, they're all gone now due to cancer and overdose and some gang shit. I don't know. Anyways, during the months that my mom was basically held captive by her uncle, she saw things that no little kid should ever have to see. Most of the time, she would be at the bar with her uncle and her aunt, with all these Yakuza members coming in and out. She remembered tattoos, the missing fingers, the constant drinking, the drugs. Also, her uncle struggled with cocaine and alcohol. He was almost always fucked up. One time, she watched him beat his own wife, her aunt, and she tried to step in, actually. And she got hit too. Yeah, she remembered him running around the house naked because he was so high. And I can't help but imagine some, like, Grudge horror movie character running up and down the walls and ceiling as she said this. Also, the entire time she was telling the story, nobody interrupted at the table. Nobody made jokes. Nobody really said anything. We were just listening. But she finally finished, and I looked over at my dad, and I asked him again, seriously, how do you not know any of this? He really didn't have an answer. So I looked at my mom, and she said, well, he just never really asked, you know? And honestly, that fucking stuck with me more than anything else. I spent my whole childhood listening to my dad tell stories about himself. Meanwhile, my mom had this entire life that nobody knew anything about. Not because she was hiding it, but I guess nobody ever asked. And maybe she didn't think it was that important. Ever since then, I've thought a lot about how easy it is to assume that you know someone, especially your parents. So I guess the moral of the story is, don't get married unless you know someone truly and that you truly love each other. Don't do that. I even asked my parents, like, when did you truly fall in love and when did you decide to get married? They both kind of said the same thing. And I asked them separately alone, you know, and they said, well, there was no point where we were truly like heels to Jesus in love, like a Disney movie. They said it was just good for the money, good for business, and that they had an understanding with each other. So I still don't understand that to this day. And to this day, I still consider it like a huge mistake. I mean, one that at least I hope I never do that. And to be fair, they're not together anymore. Anyways, thanks for listening. Please comment if you have anything similar that's happened to you. This is my first video, so please like and subscribe and let me know about any feedback you might have. And I've got plenty more stories like this one, so if you enjoyed it, see you next time. Also, I make music, so check out my Spotify. My name is Tanisako.
Yeah, I had to tell her off, but I wish I didn't talk, and I wish that I was wrong. Guess I pushed